I don't know how you guys relate to this, but like big picture, I appreciate people who've put themselves in a situation where they're responsible. Like ultimately, they're going to be held accountable for whatever happens. And what I love about that is like there's not many instances in life where you have the chance to put your fate in your own hands. And Dan Campbell does that when he gets an opportunity to. And granted, it encompasses his team and everyone else. But like here's the cool thing is if you're the type of guy as a player where you're like, I want the ball, end of the game, I want it in my hands, I want a shot. Like that coach is going to be the one to put it. He'll be like, all right, here you go. Like you're going for it on fourth down. Like in this critical moment, like we need you to make a play. Like he's not going to settle for a field goal. He's just not. And he's whatever's the most aggressive thing he can do, he's going to do. And I don't know. There's something about that I appreciate because there's not many men like Dan Campbell, not only coaching in the NFL for that matter, but in the world with how they go about leading people, leading other men. So it stinks because we're having a conversation about him today and the way this whole thing worked out. But, you know, Jonas, LaVar, you were just hitting on it. Like, first off, they had plays to be made, man. If you're Vildor, the safety, you gotta pick that off. It goes through your hands, hits off your helmet. Like, that's on you. Yeah. If you're Jahmyr Gibbs, you got to hold on the football, man. I know you're a rookie, but, man, like everything they could have done last night was in their hands. And he gave them an opportunity to succeed, to win that game. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. And I think, do we have the other sound of him talking post-game, Jonas, about how hard it is to get back there?
Oh, yeah. He talked about his heart getting ripped out and then, basically said that this could be their only shot. Here was Dan Campbell post-game.
I think I said it pretty vividly. It's like getting your heart ripped out, and it's hard. You know, it's hard. And no, we didn't come in at halftime. Nobody. We were doing backflips like, all right, we got this thing won. They know better. We all know better. We talked about it. We knew they were going to make a run in the second half. We talked about it. We knew we were going to have to weather a storm in the second half. And so when they started to make a push, we weren't surprised. We just couldn't counter back. And we've always been able to counter back. We just couldn't quite do it in this one. Look, I told those guys, this may have been our only shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware. And it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. That's the reality. And if we don't have the same hunger and the same work, which is a whole other thing, once we get the offseason, then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we draft. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up, and, you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, which is fine. But so it's hard. You want to make the most of every opportunity, and we had an opportunity, and we just couldn't close it out.
He's right, and it's so depressing.
It just makes you think about, like, I immediately start thinking about Kansas City.
Bro, you know what I was thinking about, though? They stopped showing those live shots of Ford Field. I was like, is Ford Field still still up?
It was wide. It was probably empty.
It was great in the first half. Second half, I was like, they haven't showed Ford Field in a while. I wonder what's happening there. Someone light the field on fire. They're breaking the whole thing down.
They fouled out in an orderly fashion.
I don't want to imagine that. But to the point about this team, like, and LaVar, you and I experienced this firsthand. Like, every year it's different. You might have a third of the team, maybe even half the team back if you're lucky. But every year there's usually roster turnover. And there's coaching staff turnover. Like, Ben Johnson's presumed to be maybe the next head coach of the Washington Commandos. So if that's the case, like, you gotta fill that void. Is someone going to be able to game plan and work with Jared Goff the way Ben Johnson has? Is Jared Goff still your quarterback? He's an unrestricted free agent heading into 2025. You got to make decisions on all those sorts of things moving forward. So, if he is the quarterback of the future, because he is young. I mean, he's 29, be 30 years old this year. He's got a year left. So, there's a chance they could extend him this offseason. Or there's a chance maybe they'll start thinking about, the next guy behind him. I mean, there's so many things that go into play here. And I think that's the crushing part for Lions fans, for it to end the way they did. Like, it almost would have been better if they were the team that was down 24-7 and came back and came up short than the team that was leading 24-7, and then were the team that couldn't close it out because of how long it's been and just the history of this team. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that would have been easier to deal with than the way that game played out.
There's probably a Lions fan back in '92 who was like, you know what, it sucks. We lost the NFC title game, but the way this team's built, we'll be back.
Hey, if somebody would have told
30
you
30 years later,
if somebody would have told you between the quarterbacks that play on championship weekend, which quarterback would be the one to use his legs to win the game? Yeah. Which quarterback would you have said that would have did it?
Well, the most unlikely.
The short white guy. What do you mean?
I know where you're going. Okay, I know where you're going.
I mean, dang.
But that goes back to the initial Todd Monken game plan. Like, and you go back to the divisional round last week, Baltimore separated because of Lamar Jackson's legs.
Yes.
It was like that should have been their bread and butter at a half of like, how are we getting back into this? Let's run Lamar.
Hello. Like my whole thing was, was there pressure? Do you feel like because he was heading towards his second MVP award of the league that there was pressure for him to show he could throw and win versus just being Lamar Jackson and going out and just winning the game?
That's been their offense, though, all year. Like, the offense in a lot of the personnel settings, when they've needed to throw, like it's been 11 personnel, they've spread it out and they've thrown, and it's been more successful. The problem is you got to give Spagnuolo and KC credit. Like, the job they did with the different looks, the rush patterns. Sometimes they'd rush three and they kind of keep two spots. Both linebackers, one would be kind of there to hug up on the running back and make sure he stays in, and the other one would be try to kind of banjo it and wait for the quarterback to release. I thought they could have taken some of what Spagnuolo and the Chiefs did defensively out by just dictating and running the football. We're going to get in big personnel. We're going to run power. You're not going to be able to stop it. I mean, honestly, like Chris Jones, you really didn't hear much about him in that game until Baltimore had to start throwing. And that's where he started to show up. But for the most part, that offensive line did a pretty decent job.
I just think there were times he could have he took it and he held it. And it was like, you could throw this one or you could run. Run, baby, run.
You know who I noticed had an impact on the Lions-Niners game was Jameson Williams. Like he had a nice – it was almost like he really wanted to get to Vegas for the Super Bowl or something.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's almost like he
You were holding on to that one, huh?
No, I'm just saying.
It seemed like
on that one. It just seemed like he was extra motivated to get to Vegas for some reason. I don't know why that was.
Tell everybody.
You know what's interesting about the Lions, though, speaking of like draft picks and all that? Remember when everyone kind of laughed at them? Like they take Jahmyr Gibbs. They took Jack Campbell in the first round. People are like, what the hell? This is not 1990. We're drafting running backs and linebackers. It's like, how'd it work out?
They are balling.
And then, by the way, they followed it up with a tight end and a safety, which, again, if you looked at most teams would say you're taking an edge rusher, a cornerback, a wide receiver, a tackle. Like, those are the four positions outside quarterback, if you don't have a need for a quarterback, that you're drafting in the first round or you're drafting in early rounds. They didn't take any of those dudes, and yet they still got to this point. So I'll say this, getting back to the Detroit conversation, I don't know if they will be able to get back or not. Green Bay is the youngest team in the NFL, and they look like they're going to be around. Minnesota, depending on what happens at the quarterback spot, that'll be interesting, but they obviously could be a tough out. I mean, they survived for a while without Cousins, and you kind of go through the Bears. The Bears are going to be an improved team. Like, that's going to be a tough division. And so I'm not counting the Lions out. I think the way they've built their roster, they're going to have a shot. But they've definitely got some things to sort out, and probably more important than anything else is what happens when Ben Johnson leaves. Because he's not a Kyle Shanahan tree, or the Shanahan tree guy. He does some similar things, but, I mean, it's reported that he's basically headed to Washington. And I think he'll do a good job there for them. He's a smart guy. He's done a great job with Goff and the Lions offense.
By the way, that Don Joy that Sam Laporte is wearing, I mean, where did he pull that off, an airplane?
There's so many guys wearing Don Joys.
That thing is massive, though. That goes from his hip to his ankle.
Greenlaw has one, too.
Yeah, so I noticed Penei Sewell's when he's motioning back and forth, which, low-key, that's one of the most, underrated things. It's like, all right, who's one of your best players? Oh, Penei Sewell, our tackle. All right, well,
move him around.
Why don't we move him around to put him in a position so we can utilize him on either side of the line or wherever the hell we want to? It's like, wait a second, that's actually kind of brilliant. If we're going to have a backup tackle in there and we don't want him to have to block whoever it may be.
Flanking with Penei.
Well, don't even flank him, but you're giving Sewell a running start, or you're giving him the ability to move and put himself in position to block whoever you need him to block, however you need him to block him. That was low key. And I know Kyle Shanahan's done it with Trent Williams. I'm surprised more teams don't do it more when you've got a guy who's athletic like Penei Sewell, when you can move him around like that to find ways of getting him a running start on some of the better matchups. It was clearly effective last night.
Yeah, it's but it's all gone now. And that'll do it.
How to do it.
There was a hell of a run. You got Eminem throwing up middle fingers at fans.
Forget you, mommy.
And that'll do it on the Detroit Lions for 2023.